First, I'm just going to start today with a simple rule. And really the only way you can win with this system is just keep fighting it. You can watch me 3 or 4 times a month and it's still, you can make mistake after mistake, drive you nuts. My common mistake is putting spaces in the rules, and that will get an error. So I'm going to just put rule 1 if, no, I'm going to do an is. UDF is, which only returns a value. I'm going to do a simple average of the close for 20 days. I'm going to do a second UDF, and I'll put an exponential moving average for the close for 20 days. And the reason I'm doing this is just to show you here, in a rule, if you don't create your own user-defined functions, like your own simple averages, you're stuck with what is preset in charts. So if you want the close to be greater, and if you use LT space MA, which is in your rule library, I'll go in here into Builder, go to indicator fields. These indicators in here are all based on what's set up in your charts. If your lower BB, if you have a constant of 21 days, or lower AIQ, or your moving averages. Here's short-term, that's the short-term moving average, the STMA. If you use that instead of creating your own, you're stuck with whatever your default is. A lot of people like a 21-day STMA in charts. Some have 50, some have 10, but you are locked in. If you use STMA and paste it into a rule for some reason, just like I did LTMA in here, then you would have to go back to charts, right-click on the LTMA, and change the parameter. I'm just going to bring that up real fast because it confuses many people that I talk to. When you open a chart, see the STMA, I'm set right a 50-day long-term. If you, in Rule Builder, you're using these values. If you right-click on the upper BB, here's the periods that you're using. Many of these indicators are already built in some of our rules, so you can actually, instead of coming in here and changing the constants, you can create your own without messing with the charts or having to rely on the charts. So if I do rule if the close is greater than long-term moving average, I'm using my settings in charts. But if I create my own, like that UDF1, the close has to be greater than, the moving averages are nothing but the simple average of the close. So I'm going for the close is greater than a 20-day moving average. So sometimes it's beneficial to create your own values, user-defined functions, whatever you wish to call them. You can use high, low, anything you wish, of course, 100 days. The other benefit to creating your own up front like this, not only you don't have to go back and mess with charts, but I'm going to insert the rule as a report right now. Click OK. But when you come over here into rule and you want to add more columns of data, you right-click on symbol and insert. Again, if you use the short-term or intermediate term as data columns in here, That's just what you're going to get. You'll get the defaults from charts. A lot of people like to create their own user-defined functions, so there's the 3 I created. So it takes an extra few seconds, but sometimes it's just more beneficial. And if I run this, there's all my moving averages plus the ones I created right here. And if you want to compare them and you've got a 10-day moving average and you create a 10-day moving average, they will be identical. You know, that I can guarantee you. Next thing is getting past the user-defined functions, creating 2 rules. I'm going to do rule 1 if the open is greater than UDF2. And you can have as many rules as you want. You can have rule 3, 4, and 5, and then when you're finished you can just create a combination rules, and we've talked about all works before. It does not have to be named all works. That's just something we've latched onto. You can name it as long as you want. Just don't put a space in it. That's what I'm good at doing. If however many rules you have in a sheet, you can combine them by just using the word and. Rule and rule 1. So now Chuck's main rule, any tickers, it has to find all tickers that apply to this rule and this rule. And that's what many people, they usually combine their rules like that. So I'm going to insert report. You'll see I've got rule, rule 1, and Chuck's main rule. You see I started over again. I don't have my columns. If you do want your columns, I'm going to delete this for the moment. I'm using right click when you don't see that. I'm a right click fanatic. If you right click on one of your existing tabs, you can copy the report, which will copy the UDF 1, 2, and 3 columns, everything. I select the rule name. And now if you look at Chuck's rule, I have the same columns here. So you can simply insert a new rule or report and have a clean slate, or you can right click on existing rule and copy. So that way you don't have to keep adding in these the columns of data here. So I'll go back to Chuck's main rule. I'm going to run it here. You'll see I have a lot of London and Toronto stock with @T. And then what a lot of people do, if they print it, and you can export this to Excel, you can simply just sort by these if you want. Sort by each column, ascending and descending.